Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Yay, we've made it through Article 1. I told you that was going to be a bear, and it was, but we made it. We got through Congress and we are moving forward. So let's just jump right in, moving into Article 2. Article 1 was all legislative, all congressional. Article 2 is then the executive branch, the president. And just like the legislative branch has the sole responsibility of making federal laws, it is then our executive who has the responsibility to enforce those laws. And we're going to go into how does the president, as a single individual, enforce this legislation. So we're going to talk about that as well. When the framers created the executive branch, there were a lot of things that they took into consideration. One was, do we have multiple presidents? Do we have a council of presidents? And another idea that came about was, do we have regional presidents? Knowing full well that the New England states and the southern states had such differences that there was actually consideration to have president in the northern part of the United States at the time and a southern president. Um, but eventually they came to agree that they were going to have a single executive, and the constitutional requirements of that single executive were also going to apply to the vice president. So the first thing we see in Article 2 is that a president will serve a term of 4 years. That is the same term of a vice president. And that was what was expected, as a president would serve 4 years. Washington served 2 terms, and he was asked to serve a third, and he said no. He said a couple of reasons he didn't want to serve a third term was one, he was struggling with the parties. He didn't like how political parties were developing. Um, he didn't like how the division that he saw in the nation. I think about, wow, what would he think about today? And the other reason he said no to a third term was, he said, if I keep getting elected, he says, how much different is that from a monarchy system that we're trying to get away from? So that became the tradition, not the rule. And it wasn't until 1951 with the 22nd Amendment, following the start of the fourth term, well, a little ways down the road, but the fourth term of Roosevelt, that an amendment was put into the Constitution with term limits on the president. Now, keep in mind, there are no term limits on members of Congress. They can be in office for as many times as they're reelected. But the president, on the other hand, is only allowed to serve 2 terms or a maximum of 10 years. So, and we talked about how that 10 years is possible. So if it's through a presidential succession, a vice president can fulfill a term, but depending on where in a president's term succession the vice president takes over, would determine how many terms that individual could serve as president. And we went through a number of scenarios where we have to consider that 2 years, is it before the halfway mark or after, to determine, can a president serve more than 2 terms? Next, it was the framers had to address the issue of, how do we choose the president? Now, this is going to probably sound crazy at first, but let me see something. Okay, sorry about that. It's going to sound rough when I say this, but the framers had a belief that the citizens could not directly elect their chief executive because of the self-interest of humans, that we are make decisions based on what's the best outcome for us individually. So the concern was, in Congress, that may be the case when we choose a member of the House of Representatives, but there are multiple members of the House of Representatives that can check on each other and one group's self-interest would have to be nationwide to have an effect on the House of Representatives. Whereas a president, if that person was personally interested, or connecting to one group's motives, there would be concern that that group could control the presidency. And so they made a decision to allow, we vote, citizens vote. However, we have a check on our votes through the Electoral College. And I guarantee you we are going to cover the Electoral College. You will understand the Electoral College. And so what today I want to do is just give you a basic. In the Constitution, it says that every state is given a group of electors, and how many electors a state gets is equal to the number of senators and representatives that state has. So if we look at Minnesota, for example, we have 8 representatives, we have 2 senators, which means we have a total of 10, and this is math I can do, we have a total of 10 electoral votes from the state of Minnesota. When you see me say here, but cannot be of such, senators and representatives cannot be these 10 individuals who cast Minnesota's votes in the Electoral College. The use of the term senators and representatives in this equation is only saying we take the total number of senators and representatives, and this number indicates how many representatives each state gets. Senators and representatives can't act as electors at the same time they're holding office. And that's constitutional. In 1804, and we'll get into that history of the Electoral College, how they originally elected the president was the person with the most number of electoral college votes won, and the person who came in second became that person's vice president. And we ran into some problems early in the Union after Washington made the decision that he wasn't going to run for a 3rd term. And so after a couple of concerning elections of a president following Washington, it was decided that we had to make some changes to the Electoral College. And so the 12th Amendment was added to eliminate the idea that the person with the most became president and the person with the second most electoral votes became vice president. And again, we're going to go into great detail when we get into the Electoral College. Today, we're just doing kind of an overview of the start of Article 2. Another constitutional requirement is that the president must be a natural-born U.S. citizen, meaning this person has to have citizenship by birth. Okay, they cannot be a naturalized citizen. Okay, we've had people run for president that weren't born in the United States. However, they were born to U.S. citizens. Their parents were U.S. citizens, so therefore they had the natural born citizenship status needed to become president. Constitution says they have to be at least 35 years old. 35 at the time they take office, not at the age that they run for office. Now, 35, I look at 35 and think that's young. 35 in 1787 was quite literally middle age. So getting to 70 years old in 1787 was considered very old. So 35 at that point was not much at all. And then the final thing that I want to touch base on here from Article 2, and you'll notice in Article 2, we're not doing sections, okay? The only article that we are doing sections in is Article 1. So when we look at all of these requirements, it's just Article 2. It's not going to be an section number. So the next thing they talk about is the residency. A person running for president has to have a continuous residency in the United States for 14 years, which means they are born in the United States as a natural born citizen, but that doesn't require them to live their entire life in the United States. They can be outside the United States for extended periods of time. Still a U.S. citizen, but they can be out of the United States. They may have gone to college for a few years outside of the United States, but they have to show that they have 14 continuous years of residency in order to be president of the United States. Okay, moving on. And yes, this might sound like it's going very, very fast because we're past Article 1. Things are going to move a lot faster as we go through these articles. The next part of the Article 2 that I want to touch base on is that it states in the Constitution that the president will get paid for their services. However, payment to the president, compensation, cannot go up or it cannot go down during a president's term. So a good president, a president who has great economic success, a president who doesn't or does have conflict, or however we determine what a good president is, isn't going to get a bonus for doing well. And the flip side of that as well. A bad president is not going to have his salary decreased because they did something that might not be popular or has caused harm to the United States. Their compensation stays the same. Inside the compensation, or the Article 2 that talks about this, they talk about the idea of no emoluments without congressional consent. Now I'm going to flip the screen here and I'm going to go back to an article that came out of the Congressional Research Service in 2021, and I'm just going to go to where what is an emolument. So, and this is just something that I want you to have down in your notes. An emolument is something gained because of someone's position. So, as we're looking here, you make money from something in the private market. Okay, you're making a salary and doing something in addition to being president. And we see that there have been conflicts with the Trump presidency in this area. But the idea of it is, I would make money off of my position. One of the concerns with the Trump organization, or with Trump during his administration, was the Trump Hotel in DC. And the idea that when dignitaries came into the United States, they would be given hotel service at the Trump Hotel. Well, the question was, is he profiting in his organization from his position? I'm the president of the United States. These people are coming in to have meetings with me, and I want them to stay specifically at my hotel. So was he profiting because he was the president? And that became a question. So if we look at emoluments, there's a couple types of emoluments that I want to go through. There's the foreign one, the domestic, and what is known as the ineligibility clause. And I like this document because it breaks these down very neatly for us to look at. So if we go back to this document, and I will link this in Schoology, so you can go back and take a peek at this. We're going to look at the three types of emoluments. So the foreign emolument, okay? It says no person holding office, and in this case, the president can't, without consent from Congress, accept any present perk, title, or any kind whatever from a king, prince, or foreign state. So this is saying that the foreign one is honestly to prevent corruption. It is to say that a president can't accept gifts, can't accept money, can't accept things from somebody from a foreign government, so that there is a clear division between the purpose of the president working for the United States versus him getting things to help him make decisions that benefit the other country. And so we look at, why did this come about? Because it was customary to give gifts to diplomats. Well, when you're giving a gift, are you expecting something in return? So that's where the foreign emolument comes from. The domestic emolument clause really is there so that the president isn't having a hand in on legislative activities. Okay, Congress can't increase or decrease, and this kind of goes back to the idea where I said you can't reward a good president with a bonus, and you can't decrease a president's salary for bad performance. And so the domestic emolument clause is that his salary is fixed. The current presidential salary right now is $400,000 per year. So the president has a fixed salary. If Biden is considered popular and he's doing well, he can't get an increase his entire term. Even if Congress decides that they're going to increase the payment to the president per year, say for example they decide we're going to increase it to $500,000, Biden isn't going to get that salary because he, until the end of his term, is at $400,000. Okay, and then the third one is the ineligibility clause. So basically what this is saying is that it's talking about senators and representatives, but it also is talking about the President of the United States. And it says that no person who is holding office under the United States can be a member of either house. So the president can't be at the same time a member of the Senate or the House. And vice versa. Members of the House and the Senate can't also run for president or serve as president. They may run for president, but once they take the oath of office, they are no longer a member of the Senate. That was President Obama. He was a senator from Illinois, and when he became president, he forfeited his position as senator of Illinois to become president of the United States. So we're looking at three different forms of emoluments, making money. Okay, so again, if you have questions, I will link this in the week 12 folder on Schoology. So going back, we got compensation. And again, if you have questions on these that you want to ask me, write your questions in the margin so that we can come back to these and I can reference these when we're back together. All right. The last part that I want to cover today is Article 2 gives us the only quote in the U.S. Constitution. And it states that when a president takes office, he has to swear under oath or give an affirmation, a vow, a pledge to support the United States. Now I'm going to show you President Obama's first inauguration. I'm going to switch over to that and let you see this. So let's go to his first term or first oath that he took on January 20th of 2009.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein
Look at how young he is.
Obama, do solemnly swear
that I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
that I will execute.
Yeah, you hate when I do this, don't you? I, and then they put the name in here, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. Let's listen to his one more time. And you will notice immediately he knows that a mistake has been made.
That I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
That I will execute
See, he knows.
Faithfully the office of President of
the
the
office
United
of President of the
States.
United States faithfully
And will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
So who we have here is the Chief Justice, John Roberts, Chief Justice of the United States. So he is the one giving the oath. So if we go back and look, Obama knew he messed up. I do solemnly swear that I will execute the office of President of the United States faithfully, and he knew immediately that was wrong. So after he gave that oath, there were people in the United States that said because he didn't do the oath exactly as the Constitution states, he's not the president. So the next day, to satisfy the people who were saying he's not the president of the United States, he goes back and he redoes the oath of allegiance, or excuse me, oath of office.
Prepared to take the oath, Senator?
But Chief Justice John Roberts wasn't all that prepared to administer it on Tuesday.
That I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
That I will execute
Faithfully the office of President of the
the
United
office of
States.
President of the United States faithfully.
Later, Roberts told the president, "My bad." And last night, he went to the White House to make it right. And with no news cameras allowed in,
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
it's a keeper.
President of the United States.
Back in 1929, Chief Justice Taft misspoke at the inauguration of Herbert Hoover.
That you will preserve, maintain, and defend.
It's preserve, protect, and defend. Alerted to the error by a sharp-eared eighth grader, Taft blamed an old man's bad memory and said the oath was still valid.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
The White House says President Obama's first swearing in was valid as well, but decided a do-over was in order out of, quote, an abundance of caution.
And the caution was a group of people who said that he's not president of the United States because he didn't say the oath word for word correctly. And then when he redid the oath on the next day, because they were out of caution, they were actually the same people were saying at that point that he is not president of the United States because he didn't take the oath at noon on the January 20th of that year, that it wasn't exactly at that point. And there was a lot of ruckus in the United States that he's not president because he did it wrong or he didn't do it at the exact time. And so for a long time, there was a group of people who would not recognize Obama as the rightful president because of those mistakes. I'm going to end here. We'll pick up again. What we're going to be going into next is looking at the different roles of the president. We're not looking at literally what president each president, the hat they preferred, but we're going to be looking at what are the responsibilities. What is this one person required to do as president of the United States?